19 major AI models were released or upgraded in just 30 days. And it's not because companies suddenly got generous. It's because they're panicking. I'm talking about Claude, Llama, Gemini, Grok, Mistral, and a bunch of others all dropping updates within the same window. On the surface, it looks like innovation is accelerating. But if you zoom out, what's actually happening is an industry-wide arms race that's fundamentally changing how AI companies compete. And honestly, it matters for you because the product you use, the price you pay, and whether open source or closed models win. All of that is being decided right now in this chaos. So let's back up. For the first few years of the AI boom, the game was simple. Whoever had the biggest model, the most compute, the smartest engineers, they won. OpenAI had ChatGPT. It was genuinely the best thing out there, and they had a moat. People used it, paid for it, and competitors were stuck catching up. Anthropic built Claude, which was good and safer, but still playing catch-up. Google had the tech, but fumbled the execution. Meta released Llama, but kept it open, which seemed like a loss at the time. Then something shifted. Around mid-2024, the gap between the best models and the second-best models started shrinking. Fast. Claude 3.5 Sonnet got really good at reasoning. Llama 3.1 got open-sourced, and people realized you could run something almost as capable as ChatGPT on your own hardware. Gemini 2.0 started showing up in Google products. And smaller companies like Mistral and even Grok started releasing models that weren't embarrassing. They were actually competitive on specific tasks. What this means is that the winner-takes-all dynamic that defined 2023 and early 2024 is breaking down. You can no longer just build one mega model, charge a premium, and rest. Because if you do, someone else will release something 85% as good for half the price or open source it entirely. That terrifies investors. It terrifies the companies. So they started releasing faster. The 30-day sprint I'm talking about started roughly in late October 2024. OpenAI dropped GPT, 4.5 Rumors, and o1 reasoning model. Anthropic shipped Claude 3.5 Haiku, a smaller, cheaper model to compete in the budget segment. Google pushed Gemini 2.0 Flash. Meta released Llama 3.2 with better multimodal capabilities. Mistral dropped new models. Grok got faster. Cohere released command models. Even smaller players like Perplexity and Together AI pushed updates. It's not that all 19 were world-changing. Some were iterative tweaks, some were just better engineering. But the velocity itself is the signal. Why is this happening? 3 reasons, and they're all connected. First, the commoditization pressure. When the gap between models narrows, you can't compete on capability alone anymore. So you compete on price, speed, and availability. If you're a startup or a smaller company, you can't outspend OpenAI on compute. But you can release faster, you can be more nimble, and you can go open source to build community. That forces the incumbents to release faster too, just to stay visible. Second, the enterprise customer is getting smart. 6 months ago, companies were buying ChatGPT Plus subscriptions and slapping them into their workflows. Now they're asking, do we really need the absolute best model? Or can we use Claude for writing, Llama for internal tools, and a cheaper option for customer support? The answer is usually we can mix and match. That kills the premium pricing story. So companies are racing to own multiple use cases instead of dominating one. Third, open source is winning in unexpected ways. Llama's open release was the moment everything changed. Suddenly, researchers, startups, and enterprises could fine-tune a competitive model without paying OpenAI or Anthropic. The community moves fast. People optimize Llama for specific tasks, medical diagnosis, code generation, customer service, and those specialized versions sometimes outperform the general-purpose giants. That's a threat to the closed model business model. So the closed model companies are releasing more frequently, trying to stay ahead of the open source curve. Here's the crazy part. This arms race is actually good for users in the short term. More competition means better models, lower prices, and more choice. If you wanted to use AI a year ago, you basically had ChatGPT or Claude. Now you've got dozens of viable options. A researcher can use Llama for free. A startup can use Mistral's API for cheap. A big company can negotiate with OpenAI or go all in on Anthropic. The market is actually working. But there's a catch. This velocity is unsustainable and it's driven by hype and investor pressure, not by fundamental breakthroughs. Most of these 19 releases were improvements, not innovations. Better fine-tuning, slightly better benchmarks, faster inference, cheaper pricing. The frontier of what's actually possible hasn't moved as fast as the release calendar suggests. So we're in a phase where companies are shipping to stay relevant, not because they've cracked something new. That matters because it means the next phase is consolidation. You can't have 19 competitive AI models forever. The market will consolidate around maybe 3 to 5 serious players, and the rest will either specialize, like Mistral focusing on Europe or Grok on reasoning, go open source and rely on community, or get acquired. OpenAI will probably stay on top, but not by as much. Claude will own the safest, most thoughtful lane. Llama will own the open source and developer lane. Gemini will own the Google ecosystem. And everyone else is fighting for scraps or finding a niche. The wild card is regulation. If the EU or US starts regulating AI heavily, it favors the big players who can afford compliance. That would actually slow down the release velocity and re-entrench the incumbents. But if regulation stays light, this arms race continues, and the gap between the best and the rest keeps shrinking. So what does this mean for you? If you use AI tools, you win right now. You've got options, prices are dropping, and the products are getting better. If you're building on top of AI, this is the moment to lock in the best open source models and avoid vendor lock-in with closed models, because the closed models are losing their advantage. And if you're investing in AI companies, the next question isn't, does this company have the best model? It's, does this company own a use case, a community, or a market segment? The model alone isn't enough anymore. The reason I'm breaking this down is because the AI industry moves so fast that it's easy to miss the structural shifts. You see a new model drop and think, oh, cool. But when you see 19 in 30 days, that's a signal that the game itself is changing. And if you want to actually understand what's coming next, whether it's the next price crash, the next consolidation, or the next breakthrough, you need to see the pattern, not just the individual releases. If you want to stay ahead of these shifts without drowning in AI news, subscribe. I break down what's actually happening in AI every few days, and I cut through the hype so you can see the real story. Thanks for watching.